Hello and welcome to Awful Commentary for part 2 of our Batman vs Superman series, 5 Things I Didn't Like. So last time I went through the 5 things I thought were good about the latest installment in the DC movie universe, and now it's time to get critical. Because for all the good performances, for all the amazing set pieces, there were 5 things that I really didn't get on with in this movie. And we'll start with part 1. Zack Snyder. Now I challenge you, listener, go on to IMDb and try and find one good movie Zack Snyder has done that wasn't either a remake of a previous movie or an adaptation from the comic book. There isn't one. There isn't a good movie on there. Zack Snyder has made a career out of adapting other people's work, literally panel to screen. And there's nothing wrong with that. Watchmen, for example, would have been a completely different movie experience had he decided to go off and just shoot whatever he wanted. But both Watchmen and Batman vs Superman suffer from the thing that made 300 so good. The stylizing. Watching 300 Spartans slaughter an endless horde of Persians is an amazing spectacle, but that spectacle is not always appropriate. It wasn't appropriate in Watchmen, a book with deliberately simplistic art, and it's not appropriate 100% of the time in Batman vs Superman. In this movie, Zack Snyder has shown that while he's an incredible action director, when it comes to something with a more difficult and complex plot, he is not the guy you want helming the project. Which leads us on nicely to part 2, the plot. Just what is the story for Batman vs Superman? The plot itself is so all over the place that it's impossible to know which scenes take place where in what timeline. If you think that it's all chronological, it can't be, and here's a quick reason why. Early in the movie, we find out that Batman is trying to track the White Portuguese. We don't know what it is, we don't know who it is, all we know is it's something called the White Portuguese. We find out later in the story that the White Portuguese is a ship that Lex Luthor is using to illegally bring kryptonite into America. He's bringing in illegally because a senator that he was in contact with refused to do it because she knew that he was going to use it to try and kill Superman. But here's the thing. We're introduced to the White Portuguese long before Lex Luthor is forced to try and bring in the kryptonite in secrecy. So why is the ship under investigation if Lex Luthor thinks that he's going to be bringing it in completely legally? It just doesn't make any sense. That little plot example leads me quite nicely onto part 3. Lex Luthor. Now, this isn't to say that Jesse Eisenberg does a bad job. Jesse Eisenberg delivers the perfect Lex Luthor for what they were going for. The problem is that Lex Luthor doesn't even make any sense. In fact, he's a completely different character to the one that we know and love from the comics. Now, certainly, he shouldn't be exactly the same as the Lex Luthor from the comics, because if you want to see that one, just go and read him. But considering you're taking him from a source, why do they seem to have taken him from the Joker? Lex Luthor is a character of such intellect that he's amazing to fend off the Justice League's attempts to constantly imprison him, as well as work his way to becoming president of the United States. That is something that just does not seem possible at all for this cackling, tick-tocking Lex Luthor that Jesse Eisenberg has portrayed. Lex is not a psychopath. He's an incredible mind. He's an incredible businessman. He should be portrayed more like bald, clever Donald Trump than he should the Joker. If, instead of hating Mexicans, he hated aliens, if that makes sense. And also if he hid the fact that he was evil rather than just blatantly. Now maybe he's not like Donald Trump either. Part 4. Batman. Now, I know in my previous video I said that Ben Affleck's Batman was one of my favourite things in the movie, and it was. But that doesn't change the fact that Zack Snyder's Batman is not actually Batman. In truth, it comes down to 2 things. Number 1, that Batman is an idiot in this movie. The world's greatest detective is duped by everyone into acting out of emotion. He doesn't do any detective work to find out anything about Superman other than his identity as Clark Kent. He doesn't do any detective work into how the guy with no legs happened to get an amazing electric wheelchair that had a bomb in it. And he didn't do any detective work on the possible implication of LexCorp's involvement with metahumans. And then there is the murdering. I get that Batfleck is an older, more worn down Batman who's become more vicious with age. He's a hero who has lost hope and gone to the extent of branding his opponents. The problem comes when Batman starts slaughtering everybody that he fights. The Batmobile chase scene is an impressive scene, but it completely loses focus when Batman is slinging cars onto other cars, slamming people into lorries, just shooting people with a machine gun. And Zack Snyder defended this by citing Mr. Sunday Movie's Batman kill count video by saying, nobody cares when the other Batmen kill people. Yes, they did! Fans say that Burton's Batman was a murderer. People say that Christian Bale's Batman was kind of not Batman when he didn't save Ra's al Ghul at the end. The selling point of this character was that he was going to be the comic book adaptation of Batman. You can't have the comic book adaptation of Batman when you're just killing people and then citing other people's movies as a defense against it. And part 5, Batman versus Superman. My initial concern for this movie when it was announced was that the concept was coming way too soon. People were saying that the problem with Marvel's Civil War was that in every Avengers movie, Captain America and Iron Man fight, and Civil War doesn't work unless the two characters are more like brothers than they are enemies. That is even more true for Batman and Superman. Batman and Superman are brothers because they are the only superheroes who are not directly influenced by the other. The Flash is not an equal to Superman, even though he is faster, because the Flash takes lessons from Superman. Nightwing could never be an equal to Batman because he is always looking up to Bruce Wayne. It is difficult to sell these two people as brothers when in their first meeting they are fighting to the death. Batman vs Superman should have been Justice League Movie 3. And if you want to talk about introducing concepts too soon, what happened at the end of the movie? Again, the death of Superman only makes sense if Superman is the greatest hero on the planet. His death is heartbreaking because no matter what Earth has come up against, there has always been the best of us there to save everyone. Superman's death hurts because it is the death of hope. And it is difficult to have the death of hope when nobody even likes the guy. It is difficult to sell the world universally coming together in recognition of Superman when he dies fighting something that comes from his home planet. And by that, I mean he's never saved anyone from anything that wasn't directly from Krypton. Sure, he's rescued people from burning buildings in Mexico, and that's not to downplay that. But when it comes to saving the planet, he's only saved Earth from his planet. More than anything, the people of Earth would probably be relieved that Superman is dead, because that puts an end to Kryptonian destruction of Earth. So what do you guys think of my criticisms for Batman vs Superman? Leave a comment in the description and let us know. Thank you for listening to Awful Commentary. My name's Dominic Archer, and we'll see you next time.